In the quiet spaces between heartbeats, in the sacred stillness of night when the world sleeps, your person has been reaching out across the invisible threads that connect soul to soul. They have been sending silent prayers into the vast expanse of the universe, whispered pleas that drift like incense smoke toward the heavens, asking for divine guidance and intervention when it comes to this profound connection you share. These are not casual thoughts or passing wishes. These are deep, soul-stirring invocations born from a place of genuine longing and spiritual desperation. Deep within the chambers of their heart, nestled in that secret place where truth cannot be disguised or denied, there exists a powerful yearning for a new beginning with you. This is not simply a desire to return to what was, but rather a profound hunger for something that feels entirely fresh and pure, something unburdened by the accumulated heaviness of past mistakes and misunderstandings. What they long for transcends the mere chance to start over. They seek the inner strength, the unshakable confidence, and the spiritual courage needed to fully pursue what their soul knows to be true at this pivotal moment in time. When they look back honestly at the path they have walked, they can see with painful clarity how they may have hesitated when boldness was required. They can see how fear took control of their actions, paralyzing them at crucial moments when love called them to step forward. They can see how they allowed themselves to become distracted by things that ultimately held no real importance, chasing shadows while the light stood waiting before them. But something has shifted within them now. Their spirit has become restless, stirred by an unquenchable desire for another chance, another opportunity to make things right. They are asking the universe with everything they have to open a door for them, to create a pathway that will allow them to return into your life in a way that feels honest, vulnerable, and deeply meaningful. More than anything else in this world, they want the opportunity to show you the true depth of what they feel. They long to prove through concrete action and genuine expression the profound emotions that perhaps remained unspoken before, feelings that lived in the shadows of their heart because they lacked the courage to bring them into the light. Hashtag the eternal flame that refuses to die. Despite the relentless passing of time, whether it has been months or even years since you last connected, the bond they feel toward you has not diminished even slightly. In fact, it has only grown stronger, more insistent, more impossible to ignore. They often find themselves marveling at how powerful the pull toward you remains, as if an invisible cord still binds your souls together across whatever distance separates your physical forms. The love they carry, the passion that burns within them, and the emotional fire that sparked into existence when you first connected still burns with an intensity that takes their breath away, refusing to fade regardless of distance or silence or the obstacles that life has placed between you. They recognize this connection as something extraordinarily rare, something that most people search for their entire lives without ever finding. This is not merely a fleeting attraction that will pass with time, nor is it simply a pleasant memory they can tuck away and forget. This is an eternal flame that continues to illuminate their thoughts and fill their dreams with visions of what could be, what should be, what their soul insists must be. Yet they also perceive you now through a lens of deep respect and even reverence. In their eyes, you embody the powerful energy of the Queen of Swords. You stand before them as someone who is powerful beyond measure, self-aware in ways that inspire awe, and unafraid to cut away anything that no longer serves your highest good. They know that you have walked away from situations that were draining you, including this very connection. Not because your love was absent or weak, but because you recognized with wisdom beyond your years the paramount importance of self-respect and emotional peace. They remember with vivid clarity how exhausting and toxic things became between you both at times. They can still feel the weight of the misunderstandings that piled up like stones, the emotional imbalance that left both of you struggling, and the unhealthy cycles that began to spin faster and faster, threatening to pull you both under. And though it caused you tremendous pain, though it required a strength they are not sure they possess, you made the conscious choice to let go rather than continue carrying the crushing weight of a dynamic that was slowly draining the life force from your spirit. To them, this act of release was not weakness but rather the ultimate demonstration of strength. They admire you profoundly for having the courage to choose yourself when the situation demanded it. From their perspective, you are someone who has faced profound challenges and devastating upheavals in life with a grace and maturity that seems almost otherworldly. You do not waste your precious energy lingering in blame or drowning in resentment. Instead, you rise above difficult circumstances like a phoenix emerging from flames, taking full responsibility for your own growth and transformation. They see you as someone who is beautifully self-sufficient, deeply wise, and remarkably resilient. You are a person who has learned the sacred alchemy of transforming pain into wisdom, of turning endings into new beginnings. In many ways, they feel that you are a mirror reflecting what they themselves aspire to become, showing them the potential that exists within their own soul if only they have the courage to reach for it. ## the prison of material illusions. Your person, however, has lived much of their life trapped within a very different world. For a long time, far longer than they care to admit, they were seduced by the glittering promises of material success, hypnotized by external appearances, and addicted to the hollow validation that comes with accumulating money, cultivating a certain image, and maintaining social standing. These pursuits wrap themselves around them like chains disguised as jewelry, giving them a false sense of strength, creating an illusion of being in control and admired by others. But beneath the surface glamour, these things left them emotionally starved and spiritually unfulfilled. They were taught, conditioned, and programmed to believe that success, status, and the carefully constructed mask of popularity define a person's worth, especially for someone expressing masculine energy. This cultural illusion kept them imprisoned, bound to karmic cycles that repeated endlessly, attached to superficial connections that never touched their soul. Even when their heart began to whisper that something essential was missing, when that quiet voice inside tried to tell them they were living a lie, they silenced it with practiced efficiency, convincing themselves that external success mattered more than internal truth, that what others thought was more important than what their soul knew. But then something miraculous happened. They met you, and everything they thought they knew began to shift and crumble and transform. Being in your presence awakened feelings they had spent years burying, emotions they had perhaps never truly allowed themselves to experience before. Feelings that had been suppressed beneath layers of conditioning came rising to the surface like long-submerged treasures breaking through water. Longing that made their chest ache, tenderness that made them feel vulnerable in unfamiliar ways, and even fear of losing something so precious that it terrified them to imagine life without it. No matter how desperately they tried to control these overwhelming emotions, to stuff them back into the carefully locked boxes where they had lived before, they simply could not. The connection you shared felt profoundly spiritual, almost otherworldly in its intensity, and they could not deny that there was something far greater at play than mere physical attraction or temporary romantic interest. You became a key that unlocked doors within them they did not even know existed. ## the awakening of the soul. You illuminated their inner world like sunrise breaking over a landscape that had known only darkness. You showed them through your very being that love is not weakness but the ultimate strength, that vulnerability is not a character flaw but rather a sacred gift that allows two souls to truly meet. Yet even with this profound awakening taking place within them, they felt torn between two worlds, pulled in opposite directions by competing forces. Part of them remained stubbornly bound to their old world, that familiar territory where money and image dictated every choice and decision. They may have stayed trapped in karmic situations and unhealthy dynamics because of financial ties that felt impossible to break or the paralyzing fear of losing what they had spent years building materially. This internal conflict left them feeling desperately trapped, as though they were living two completely separate lives simultaneously. There was the life that looked impressive and successful on the outside, the one that others admired and envied, but which felt hollow and empty inside like a beautifully decorated tomb. And then there was the life their soul yearned for with increasing desperation, the authentic life that was deeply connected to you, to truth, to real love. The more they tried to ignore the magnetic pull toward you, the more internally restless and unsettled they became, until they finally could no longer deny the undeniable truth that the love they feel for you is utterly real, completely unshakable, and undeniably destined. You became the mirror that revealed the truth of their entire existence in sharp, unforgiving clarity. Through you, through the light of your presence and the depth of your being, they began to see with devastating honesty how shallow and meaningless their old pursuits truly were. They began to recognize how much energy they had wasted avoiding their genuine emotional needs, how much of their life they had spent running from their own heart. You shed brilliant light on their lifestyle, their misplaced priorities, and the comfortable illusions they had been clinging to like a child clutches a security blanket. It was not always a comfortable revelation. In fact, it was often painful and disorienting to have the curtain pulled back so abruptly. But it was absolutely necessary for their growth and evolution. You showed them that true strength has nothing to do with how much money one accumulates in a bank account, how many people follow them on social media or admire them from a distance, or how much power they appear to hold in worldly terms. Real strength, you demonstrated, is about living with authenticity, practicing emotional honesty even when it is difficult, and having the courage to love openly despite the risk of being hurt. Now, as they look back over the path they have walked, they see you as the one who awakened their sleeping soul, who called them back to life when they were merely existing. And because of that profound gift you gave them, they continue to plead with the universe for another chance, another opportunity to prove themselves worthy. They long for the opportunity to step forward differently this time, not as someone still trapped by material illusions and false values, but as someone finally ready to embrace the emotional and spiritual bond you share with both arms wide open. #a confession from the heart. My divine feminine, without you in my life, all I see stretching before me is darkness, an endless night that refuses to lift no matter how desperately I search for dawn. I have to confess something that weighs on me constantly. Not a single day passes without you occupying my thoughts, without your presence filling my mind and heart. From the moment I open my eyes in the morning until I finally surrender to restless sleep at night, you linger in every corner of my consciousness, haunting me in the most beautiful yet unbearable way imaginable. My heart becomes heavy with emotions I cannot always find adequate words to express, feelings that crash over me like ocean waves, sometimes calm and gentle, sometimes violent and overwhelming, but always, always present. There are moments, I must admit, when I blame you for how I feel, moments where I resent the overwhelming depth of this magnetic pull between us that I seem powerless to resist. Yet deep within, beneath the surface anger and frustration, I know with absolute certainty that my anger is only a protective mask worn over my love, a shield I raise when the vulnerability becomes too much to bear. The truth is devastatingly simple, though painful to acknowledge. I love you in ways I cannot fully explain or articulate, even to myself. This complete loss of control terrifies me to my core. I was someone who always prided myself on maintaining composure in every situation, on keeping my heart carefully guarded behind high walls, and on keeping my emotions restrained and under my command. But with you, everything I had carefully constructed shattered into 1,000 pieces. No matter how hard I try, no matter what strategies I employ or what distractions I pursue, I cannot get you off my mind. I have attempted repeatedly to disconnect from these feelings, to sever the tie that binds us, to convince myself that life would return to some semblance of normal if only I could walk away completely. Sometimes I succeed for a little while, managing to push thoughts of you to the periphery. I distract myself with meaningless activities and empty pursuits, burying my thoughts in things that do not matter, telling myself with false confidence that I am finally free from this consuming love. But it never lasts. The freedom is always an illusion. The connection always returns, rushing back with even greater force than before, stronger and fiercer, as if it refuses to let me go, as if our souls have made an agreement that my conscious mind cannot override. When I claimed to you that I was at peace, when I told you I had moved on and found contentment without you, I was lying through my teeth. I lied to you, yes, but even more tragically, I lied to myself, because pretending seemed easier than facing the overwhelming truth of what I feel. Pretending I was over you, convincing myself the feelings had faded, felt safer and easier than confronting the truth that my heart was still completely yours. But in reality, nothing works. Nothing dulls this persistent ache that has taken up residence in my chest. Nothing silences the constant echo of your presence that reverberates through every chamber of my heart. I have tried desperately to convince myself that our connection is temporary, that with enough time and distance it will fade away like a passing storm that eventually exhausts itself. But the more I try to let go, the more the feelings grow, taking root in the deepest part of me like a tree whose roots reach down to touch my very soul. I knew from the very beginning that there was something different about us, something sacred and rare. And perhaps that is precisely why I ran, why I turned and fled as fast as my feet could carry me. What I felt for you was stronger, more intense, more all-consuming than anything I had ever experienced in my entire life. I sensed instinctively that if I surrendered to it fully, if I allowed myself to fall completely, there would be no turning back, no returning to the person I was before you. You broke through walls I had spent years building, walls I thought were absolutely indestructible, reaching places in the depths of me that I had never allowed anyone else to touch or even see. To let you in completely was to risk everything I thought I knew about myself, to risk the comfortable identity I had constructed. There was no way I could allow anyone else to get as close as you did, to see me as clearly, to touch me as deeply. There was no way I could ever love another person as I love you, because before you, love was something abstract and theoretical, something I thought I could control and manage and keep neatly contained in its proper place. But with you, love became raw and real and uncontainable, utterly consuming in a way that both thrilled and terrified me. I never knew that love could feel so pure, so transparent, so completely honest until I met you and felt what real love truly is. It was not just simple affection or physical desire, though those were certainly present. It was as if you awakened a forgotten part of my soul that had been sleeping, waiting for your arrival. Before our connection formed, I genuinely believed I had everything under control. My heart was guarded by steel and stone, my emotions carefully restrained and monitored. I knew exactly how to numb myself when feelings became inconvenient, how to hide behind practiced smiles, how to deny my truth when it threatened the status quo. I wore elaborate masks so skillfully that even I believed they were my true face. I thought strength meant never being vulnerable, never letting anyone close enough to see the real me underneath all the layers of protection. But then came you, shattering every illusion I had built. You saw through every mask with eyes that seemed to look directly into my soul, loving me in a way that made it impossible to hide, impossible to pretend. And for the first time in my life, I realized how deeply terrifying and yet how breathtakingly beautiful it is to be truly seen, to be known completely, to be loved for who you actually are rather than who you pretend to be. #the message of hope and transformation. This reading is especially directed toward those who currently find themselves in a difficult period of no contact with their partner, separated by silence that feels heavy and meaningful. The distance between you and them is not accidental, nor is it without deeper purpose. Right now, in this very moment, your partner exists in a space of deep reflection and profound uncertainty. They are not fully content with their own life situation, and this internal dissatisfaction colors everything they see, including how they perceive the relationship you share. In many ways, the silence is not simply about you or anything you have done. It is about the struggles they are facing internally, the battles being fought in the private chambers of their heart. They are questioning their own path with brutal honesty, examining their direction, and trying to determine what they truly want from life. At the same time, they find themselves unsure of your feelings toward them in this present moment. Because you have wisely shifted your energy inward, focusing with admirable dedication on your own growth, your healing journey, and your personal life goals, they find it difficult to gauge whether you still hold the same depth of affection for them. From their perspective, you appear strong, independent, and unwavering in your commitment to yourself. They admire this quality about you tremendously, yet it also makes them hesitate, makes them question whether there is still room for them in your life. They can see clearly that you are not a woman who clings desperately to people or situations that diminish your inherent worth. To them, you radiate confidence, class, and high value like a beacon that cannot be dimmed. They know with certainty that if someone fails to recognize your worth or treat you with the respect you deserve, you will not stay and tolerate it.